Hello, and welcome to my interview with an educational leadership influencer that will help us be able to unpack a lot of what I try to talk about in Chapter 6. I'm joined today by Claire Peet, who is the Senior Academic Professional Development and Quality Assurance Manager at the Yucheng Yuhua Education Foundation. Claire oversees the professional development and learning opportunities for colleagues across the foundation's 18 campuses and local management companies. Today, we're really going to be talking about, what is developing the capacity of middle leaders? What does it include? What does it look like? And getting deeper into her own experiences around what she feels are the most successful strategies for developing capacity. But Claire, before we go into that a little further, do you want to share with us a little bit more about your passion for this area and specifically what you do for the foundation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Michael. I've been with the Yucheng Yuhua Education Foundation since 2017, first in Hong Kong and now more recently in Shanghai. I haven't always worked within this field, within this area. I was a classroom teacher for a really long time and the head of humanities faculty. While I was in Hong Kong, I had the opportunity to work as part of the senior leadership team on professional development. And that was really the first time that I identified a project that I wanted to scope out, something that I thought could really have impact across all of our school networks. So when the opportunity came available to move to Shanghai and to put those ambitions and dreams together to start a brand new division for the organization and to work across all of our schools, I couldn't say no. What a fantastic opportunity. So I'm definitely still learning on this journey as well. Now within my current role, I get to work with all of our leaders across all of our schools and visit them as often as possible and really understand what drives them and what their needs are in a very complex time within education, but certainly very complex and difficult within the China and Greater China region.
Yeah, so I mean, it's arguably what we can say is what you and I set out to do a few years ago and what brought us together is around this idea of developing middle leaders hasn't gotten easier. It's actually gotten tougher, which has kind of forced us to be much more creative in terms of achieving what we hope to do is really build aspiring senior leaders. And we're going to talk more about that towards the end of this interview. So Claire, one of the first questions I have for you is about this idea of capacity building, because it's a phrase in education that's not very well known. So first, how would you define what capacity building is in an education sense for a leader's capacity? And two, what would be some examples of how we develop a middle leader's capacity?
I think you're absolutely right. Defining capacity is a term that is not well known in education. I think for me, it's about making sure that you're not irreplaceable, which kind of goes against the grain for a lot of people. We like to be seen as, as worthwhile, as valued. So to be told, actually, we need to make sure that there's plenty of other people that can do your job in the longer term, but are also continuing to grow and enhance their skills and competencies within their current role. That's quite an alien idea within education, certainly not within the corporate world, but definitely within education. And I think it comes back to that sense of self, of really wanting to feel like we're helping and to feel like we are supporting others. We take a lot on, which is not always the best idea when you're trying to develop others. And that really is massively overlooked. And it's essential, especially in the international sector, because it is that much more transient. And if we're failing to really develop and build that capacity, we're very quickly left in a situation where we simply don't have the people that are equipped or ready to step up and to take on those leadership opportunities, particularly at a middle leadership level. We can send them out on courses and training, but if they're never really given the opportunity to cut their teeth and to actually apply that learning, then it really doesn't go anywhere and it loses momentum very, very quickly. And that really leads on to how you build that capacity for middle leaders. I think it's about purposefully and explicitly in many ways developing and building those experiences and those opportunities for them to be able to recognize something that's important to them that they want to work on within their leadership growth or development, and then supporting those opportunities for them to run with that, and being there as a champion, if you like, to support them through that process, to ask meaningful questions, and to let them take risks. That's the other thing that I think, especially right now, you know, we're all a little bit scared still. We've gone kind of underground with COVID and everything else that's going on in the world right now. I think that firefighting mentality is harming our willingness to let go, and to let people kind of try new things, to speak their mind, to talk about alternatives. And we need to get back into a space where that becomes not only safe, but also encouraged.
Thank you, Claire, for sharing that definition of capacity building. And from what I understand, what you actually were sharing with us, and something that actually broadened my perspective on this idea, was that capacity building isn't just preparing people for other roles, and even roles in terms of leadership that, you know, are above where they are now, but it's also about filling voids. Because the transient nature of international education, we have leaders coming and going all the time. And some of these leaders create roles for themselves or take on responsibilities that others might not be prepared for. So therefore, then when we talk about how to build the capacity of these leaders, you mentioned about how important it is to create experiences for them, to support them, and to encourage them to, you know, take risks. So I can see now, in terms of filling a void if somebody's leaving, you know, we want to create experiences for them so that they can experience what we are doing that might be unique to them, support them through doing it, and ask them to take risks so they don't feel like they're going to be judged if they fail or it doesn't work out the way they want. That was a really perspective broadening response for me, so I appreciate that. My second question I have for you is, what are a few common challenges to develop leadership capacity and some solutions to those challenges?
I think for many of us as educators, we naturally like to solve people's problems. We do this with our students, we do this with our colleagues. I certainly, for a very long time, you know, I had a lot of pride attached to being the person that people sought out to answer their questions, or if they had a query, or if they just needed to know something. And it wasn't actually until moving and working internationally that I realized how detrimental that was. And that really, looking back on it now, was a very negative factor in who I thought I was as a leader. I can remember leaving the UK and being told, oh, we've got nobody to replace you. And at the time thinking, oh, thanks, that's wonderful. And it took me a couple of years to realize that's a big problem. I think as a leader, we get so busy doing so many things, we kind of just expect others to just get there, especially if we're perhaps that way inclined. And at no point did I think, oh, I need to set aside meaningful and purposeful time to develop those around me to be able to do my job. Whether it's actually because I was leaving or just because I needed to be able to delegate more effectively, as well as being able to develop their capabilities and competencies. It took a long time for that realization to hit home. But I do think that, especially internationally, what we do, the work we do in schools, it can be so transient. It's very hard to maintain that institutional memory. So it's even more important that we really look to ensure we're building the capacity in others. And we were having this conversation actually a couple of months ago in one of the workshops designed to support professional development in schools. And a retiring leader a retiring middle leader said, oh, I'm leaving in 12 months. I don't actually know who's going to replace me. I've not identified anybody. I don't think there's anybody who wants it or could do it. And it really was a light bulb moment for her to realize that she had a piece of the responsibility here to help bring on her team members to a point at which there was not only necessarily one, but multiple people that were ready or could be ready shortly to step up. And more importantly, those that wanted to as well. So this is my other reflection in thinking back to my early career as a leader. I'd established myself as that efficient and that competent that people would say, oh, I can't do her job. I don't want it. It's too full on. It's too crazy. And I'd managed to create a perception that it was an undesirable position, which again, looking back now, was a real disaster as a leader. I'd want to make sure that many people would be saying to me, I really aspire to do what you're doing. I'd love to be able to be in your position in a couple of years' time.
In your response just now, there were three themes that came up to me about challenges. One was the challenge of time. Two was this institutional memory, this idea that because of the transient nature of leadership, people are coming and going, and we're not quite able to capture their experience and knowledge before they leave. The third was that sometimes we create a perception about the roles that we might be leaving and need to be filled, that they're very complicated. People don't quite understand them. So I want to come back to what you originally shared with us about your first experience of leaving from the UK. I want to bring it forward to the fact now that you're in this new role at the foundation, that you yourself are creating as you go in many respects. It's a very broad role. Having learned what you did from that UK experience, sharing with us what you just did about the definition of capacity building and what we need to do for middle leaders, how are you going to prepare people to replace you in your current role?
Absolutely right. The role that I am now working in is completely self-created. I'm very grateful for that, actually. I was given the opportunity to just be told, you have a dream, you have this very clear vision and an action plan, go ahead, get on with it, see what we can do. And as that role has grown, it's taken on lots of additional facets, and it's quite complex. And when we were first looking to expand this team, I wrote out that job description and just thought, who is this person? There's absolutely no way that I'm going to find this person who's been in the classroom and has a number of years experience, this person that wants to work within professional development and learning, that wants to mentor new teachers, that wants to do all of these things. Does this person even exist? And I think that's why when we look to identify the roles for growing the team, we were focused very much on the qualities, the skills in the person, as opposed to, they've worked within schools, they have worked within professional learning, they have perhaps a HR background. All of those things would be very, very difficult to hit. So we were looking for people to be able to join the team that had that drive, that were able to identify ways forward with the projects we'd established so far, and also had the ambition to take it to the next level, to do their own thing with it. So I think one of the key things that we're doing now within the team is really looking for opportunities to be explicit with that. In developing the group that I now work with, we've been really keen to make sure that they are supported with those mentoring conversations, that we're looking for opportunities to align organization-wide action planning with their own thoughts and ideas and goal setting, and ensuring that they're supported and they're given the tools and the access to be able to do that.
All right, I really appreciate this idea that a solution to helping fill the shoes that you're building, literally, is that we're going to need to look for people that have a passion for this type of role, ambition to really not only take on what you're doing, but maybe even to shape and influence it itself. Additionally, getting people more involved. And this comes back to this idea of creating experiences for them. But I think a very key thing there that was quite important about getting them involved at the organization-wide level. So getting them out of their silo, getting them out of the current position they're in, and getting them more exposed to what's happening at the organization. This actually leads to my third question, because one of the things that I advocate for in my book is this idea of 70-20-10. That's this idea that, we're going to have a mixture of formal learning with mentoring, and we're going to mentor them to achieve projects or goals that are bigger than themselves. We're going to really push them out there and get them to take challenges. How do you achieve that at YCEF and its 18 campuses? What does that look like for you to get people out of their shells and to really having these experiences and getting organization-wide awareness?
I think 70-20-10 really speaks to a number of projects that we're doing right now that, if I could simplify it and bring it back to what's at the heart of it, I think for the first time in a long time, we're listening. We've made a real effort over the last 18 months to really explicitly ask people, what does your leadership growth, what does that look like for you? What support do you need? How can we support you in the next steps for your career and also your experiences within the organization, but also recognizing that people will move on. How do we ensure that people feel valued and that we're investing in their development for our benefit and their personal benefit as well? And there is a sense right now that they really do need to feel that it's not just about, oh, you're letting me do this course or you're letting me do this program because it benefits the organization. There's a lot of emotion involved in it right now. People really want to feel like it's for them, that it's personal. And I think the programs we've developed over the last couple of years have really had that at their heart, that it can be personalized, it can be bespoke, and it's about relationships. And that's really led the work we've been doing over the last year or so, that's very much been focused around development pathways and allowing people to align with expectations that are kind of pre-described and be able to identify where they are and what those next steps look like for them. And in many cases, that's also facilitated that ability to work outside of their school, outside of their campus, to work with others cross campus, to be able to make connections and collaborate with others that are working in other sites. And that's where the real growth has happened in the last year, just to be able to have those collaborative conversations, to align people to have those sounding boards with others, and to really get excited about how as a team they can really bring things forward. And that's allowed them to be able to take those conversations, to lean into programs, courses and support where necessary, to build that confidence with those conversations, and then to go away and do something and to actually apply it into their work. And I think for the first time in a long time, they have the scaffolded approach to be able to do that. So there's those supports and those check-ins along the way. And that's also supported by the performance management. But it also means that they feel confident about giving something a go. And that might be something new. It might not be anything new at all. It just might be about refining or reevaluating a current process or a current team dynamic, or something that they're doing within curriculum or pedagogy. It's just building that sense of willingness to change, willingness to adapt, and to figure out new ways of doing things, and to become a toddler again in many ways, and just ask why. Why do we do it that way? Is there a better way? That said, I think it comes with a balance right now. All of us across the world have 1,000,001 priorities. Tensions are still quite high. It has to come with a balance. It has to be recognized that this isn't always going to be somebody's number one priority within their work, but also within their personal lives as well. So making sure those opportunities are provided, but not making it so rigid that they feel they can't do anything else because there's this expectation attached to them doing something that, you know, they might be thinking, I'm not even getting paid for this, you know, why would I do all of this extra work? There's a fine line there. So it's identifying those opportunities to let people try new things and be supported in that, but also not creating this expectation where people just feel like you're giving them more to do. And that's quite difficult, but it comes back down to those conversations, that listening, and really identifying what is driving the individual.
So Claire, I want to thank you so much for helping shape this topic and conversation for my readers. I just want to quickly summarize everything that I've heard, especially what I've learned from our conversation, in that, you know, when we talk about capacity building, we're not just talking about preparing people to take on new roles by giving them the skills or helping them develop the dispositions they need, but preparing them to fill voids that others are creating when they leave. In doing this, we need to make sure that they feel confident and secure enough that they can learn from what they are doing by taking these risks. Additionally, you know, some of the challenges you talked about, whether they be about time, the institution, or even this perception that some people might think the role is too big for them, by actually going through these capacity building strategies of supporting them and creating these experiences and ensuring that, you know, we give them confidence that they can take the chances. Hopefully by experiencing it, not only will we be able to stoke and take advantage of their passion and their own aspirations and ambitions, but expose them to more organization-wide goals and strategies, get them more involved at the organization level. And if they're more involved at the organization level, that only builds confidence, but also hopefully we can take advantage of the ideas they have. But lastly, I think the real nuggets of gold here that you're giving us is that in order for an organization to do this, they need to be listening more to the challenges people have on the ground and how they themselves want to develop to address those challenges. Then try to align those with the organization to achieve organization-wide goals. You know, make an effort as much as possible to ensure people feel appreciated, that their development is not just about the organization, it's about them as well, and that the organization is investing in them to develop in that track. And by doing so, hopefully then they're going to take what they're learning, the relationships that they're developing, they're going to ask the big why questions, and then go out and pursue answering them. So thank you so much for enlightening me and my audience on these very important questions. And I look forward to working with you and hopefully getting an opportunity to explore these topics more with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Michael.